Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with Victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to overcome our challenges, get empowered, and make our lives sparkle. Thanks for coming today. I'm glad you're here for Happy Hour with me. So, victory chicks and you guys, if I say Golden Arches, what do you think of? Most likely McDonald's, right? Or if I show you a picture of a rainbow-colored peacock, what does that remind you of? Yeah, NBC, because that peacock is part of their brand. But brands aren't just for big companies. Whether you realize it or not, and whether it's business or personal, you have a brand. Your brand is the way people see you and how they identify you. So I'm wondering, are you in control of your brand? If you're starting a next chapter, professionally or personally, or you want to ratchet up what you're doing now, you need to be in control of that brand. Because if you don't do it, others will do it for you. And that's why I asked branding specialist Megan Driscoll to join us to talk about you, your brand, and how to use it to shape your current or next chapter. This could be a game changer. So Megan Driscoll will be here with us shortly. I hope you had a good 4th of July. I did. Joseph took Monday off so we could have a 4-day weekend. And that's unusual for us. And a couple of weeks ago, we thought about going back to Cooperstown, where we went last year for the 4th. But we've been working a lot. And when we weren't working these last couple of months, we were doing things around the house. And, you know, that kind of thing never stops. There's always something to do, whether it's a big thing like renovating a room or simple maintenance like changing a toilet seat or pulling weeds in the garden. Yeah, it's always there. So we've got plenty of that. And we've been getting together with friends. So Joseph and I decided instead of going away, we'd have a staycation. We would just be at home and just do as little as possible. And, you know, though we have a list of things to do at home, we mostly took it easy. We did get a couple of good walks in early in the morning or later in the evening, but we just didn't do a lot of anything. Oh, except on Saturday night. Listen, we drove out to Lancaster to see a show that several of Joseph's clients told him about, and it's the musical Newsies. Did any of you see it? If you didn't, it's coming to a theater near you in a couple weeks. Because I think it was earlier this year, Disney made a movie of the Broadway musical version of Newsies. Now, I didn't know Newsies was based on a true story, but it was. And it harkens back to 1899, before there were child labor laws. That's when the newsboys were either orphans, and the newsboy money that they made, the newsy money, would keep them out of the orphanage. Or they were kids from poor families, usually boys from poor families, where a newsboy's salary helped support the family. Now, I guess if you're not a history buff, you didn't hear about it when you studied history in school, because I hadn't. But, you know, as I studied, it was kind of fascinating. So the actual history of Newsies is that in 1899, in New York, Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst raised the price of papers, and as a result, the newsboys, or newsies as they were called, had to sell more papers just to make the same money. And the newsies were poor enough already. and often work, they'd start early in the morning to get the people going to work, and then they'd work late until the night. And when they found out about this increase, and it wasn't a lot, it was like a fraction of a cent, but it was enough to make a difference to them. So one of the newsies got the idea to organize a newsboys strike. And for a couple weeks, the newsies were picketing in the street and on places like the Brooklyn Bridge, like they were taking over the whole Brooklyn Bridge and tying up traffic. So as a result, suddenly Hearst and Pulitzer couldn't get their newspapers distributed, and they were furious. Now, according to the show, and I don't think this is part of the actual historical data because I couldn't find anything on it, the newsies might have not gotten any traction except for one woman reporter who was tired of being assigned to cover events on the society page, and she wanted to try her journalistic chops on some real news. And the newsboys strike was it for her. And then, of course, she does that, and then she becomes the love interest of the guy who's the strike organizer. And in the show, of course, he's the lead. And, what's a good story without a little love and romance? The extra twist, at least in the musical, is that she's Pulitzer's daughter who uses a pen name. So that's the story. But here's the thing. The music is good, but the dancing is wonderful. It's very physical, almost gymnastic. And most of the time, it's all the newsies are all like portrayed by guys who are like 20, 25 years old with biceps that were just incredible. So then there was the newsie stomping on the stage. All right, now I got to tell you this. I didn't get tickets until the last minute, and most of the seats were sold, except for the way high seats that I didn't want and obstructed views, which I certainly didn't want. So I ended up with seats in the second row, paid just a slightly bit more money. And when those guys were stomping out their very upbeat and fun dance numbers on the front of the stage, you victory chicks, I think you could feel the testosterone flying out over the audience. And I think that could be why the audience was so enthusiastic. I'm not sure I've ever seen an audience clapping and cheering and hooting and hollering after almost every dance number, and it was exciting and it was contagious. So I didn't look around at who was in the audience, but on my way home, I wondered if the audience was largely women, because those guys had that kind of an effect. Okay, maybe it was just me. Anyway, it was really good, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is because if you can't get to Lancaster to see it, no worries. The Disney film, the thing that Disney did earlier this year, is coming to a theater near us for 2 nights. And I think it's August the 5th and August 9th. And I'm going. And not for the testosterone rush either. Okay, not just for that. The music and dancing is really good. When it was first on Broadway in 2012, Newsies won several Tonys, including one for Best Original Score. So you got to know the music's good. So I wanted to tell you so that you could share that pleasure along with me. And on today's radio wrap-up at victoriously.com, I posted a couple links, one to a dance scene from Newsies, a History Detectives link, and a link to the movie theater. So you're all set. Just, look at the radio wrap-up for today. And listen, speaking about testosterone, did you hear about the Canadian baby whose health card doesn't register the baby as a male or female, but just the letter U? And nobody seems to know if that letter U means unknown, undisclosed, or what. The baby, whose parent, Corey Dottie, I think I'm saying it right, is transgender and is challenging the binary model of gender. So Dottie is quoted as having said, it's quote, "I want to be able to give them the most open opportunity to develop as a whole human being, and I don't want to be restricting them to what might come in a box as guessed by what their genitals look like." End quote. Apparently, being identified as male or female based on body parts alone is inappropriate. I don't know, guess it isn't enough. So I know for a long time there's been this huge debate about whether gender is genetic or hormonally based or, whatever. And, but I wonder if you're a new parent who does that, calls your child male or female, is society making you feel like a terrible parent? 2 years ago on July 4th, I performed a wedding for Kate and Jordan, a wonderful couple who were so excited to be starting their life together. And this year on July 4th, they announced that they are having a baby in November. And they are over the moon. I'd hate to see anyone make them feel bad because they're identifying the baby as a girl. And if you don't have an identified gender, will people call you it? Instead of she took her first steps, would they say, it took its first steps? That sounds emotionally abusive to me, to call a child it. And if you have no gender, I wonder how hard it is to create your own brand. Male and female is part of your brand. At least I think it is. And I'm thinking about even something like La Cage aux Folles, where all the guys who created successful careers out of being drag queens, that's part of their brand. Being a certain kind of drag, if you're an it, how do you create a brand? I'm going to ask our guest today, branding expert Megan Driscoll, about all of that and hear what she has to say. I invited Megan because with so many of you starting new chapters or thinking about starting next chapters, it would be helpful to start developing your new brand now. And Megan can help you. She's been doing this for over 15 years and a few years ago started her own company. It's called EvolveMKD, with 18 employees. Now she has 18 employees and she serves 20 different brands. She's won more awards than I have time to tell you about, but I posted them on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. And something that's very Victory Chicks-like is that her company is an all-woman company. So go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and come back for Megan Driscoll. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and joining me today is branding expert Megan Driscoll. Welcome, Megan.
Thanks for having me, Annmarie. I feel like I should have a cocktail in my hand.
Yeah, you really should. Or,
I know. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's right. Megan, before the break, I was talking about the transgender person who doesn't want to call its child male or female. So the baby is registered as the letter U, and, of course, nobody knows what that means. But, I was thinking about this. Isn't gender part of your brand?
Gender is absolutely part of your brand. I think to take a step back, just for your viewers out there who may not be, or listeners who may not be that familiar, a brand is the why behind why you hire or purchase a product or a service. So, like, my brand is like one of the reasons why people hire me. And I do think that gender plays into that, especially kind of depending on what career path you're in or what you're selling. I think gender can be an asset depending on what your business is.
So, like what I was saying earlier, it was like some place like a La Cage aux Folles. Like I know several several guys who are drag queens, and that's that is their brand, that they're guys and they dressed up as women.
Yep, that's at the heart of their brand. So, and I think, what distinguishes, to use your example, one drag queen's brand from another is kind of all the accessories. So what their hair looks like, what their makeup looks like, is there a character they're playing? So what's kind of the essence of their character? And I think for your listeners, like spending some time thinking about, what their personal brand is really important, not only, I think, in business, but in some respects in life too, right? Because everyone wants to stand for something, and that's a big part of being a brand.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when you say your brand is the why, how do you mean that?
So, your brand is, it's the reason people believe in you, or like think about, Nike, right? So for instance, like Nike as a brand is known for athletic innovation, superior products, like cool athletes, successful athletes. So all of that ties into what Nike stands for and what Nike is. Nike without all of that is really just a sneaker line, right, which makes it like somewhat less exciting to believe in. So the brand really gives the consumer the reason to kind of believe.
Oh, so like the athletes that are part of the advertisement for Nike, they exhibit part of that brand.
Yep. So they're also lending. They exhibit part of the brand, and then they're also lending their own brand, right, to Nike as well. So the two work together.
All right. So a few years ago, you got your business started, and specifically from a branding perspective, what were two of the most important things you did, or that, how did you figure out your brand to get you started?
So, I think for me, it's, starting my business and starting my brand was a little bit of a natural extension of what I'd already been doing. So obviously it wasn't, like I decided to open up a business in an area I had never worked in before. Right. I decided to open a business in the industry I'd been working in for, 13, 14 years at that point. And as an extension of that, I started thinking about, all right, I know what I want to do, but how do I want to do it? And the things that came to light that were important to me, that have always been important to me throughout my whole career, is giving opportunity. So opportunity for the people who work for me, but also opportunity for the community around us and opportunity for our clients. And then secondly, mentorship has always been important in my career, not only, doing it, but also having received it. And I wanted to make that a critical component of, the company and by extension my brand. So, as the company came together, I made those cornerstones of the kind of clients I worked with as well as the kind of people I hired. So every day they were an embodiment of essentially those characteristics that I wanted to make up my brand. And then kind of once that was settled, doing things like talking to you, having a presence on social media. I've done some speaking and some writing on, opportunities specifically for women, because as you noted in the intro, my company is all women. And I think that's a very important an important piece of my brand is helping women to continue to grow and be the best that they can be in whatever they choose to do. Whether it's staying with me forever, which obviously I hope my whole staff does, or going off, trying a new career, or deciding to stay home and raise kids, wanted that to kind of be core to, our day-to-day work.
And did you intentionally start out to have an all-woman staff?
Well, so I think legally I have to say that it's not intentional.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But, and you would hire a man, right?
There is something very nice about having an all-women staff. It's really interesting. People always are like, oh, it's so many women. And to be honest with you, it's great. It feels like a family. There's nice energy. We're very supportive of each other. I also think there is a very specific experience to being a female business owner that, is just different. And so being surrounded by women and going through some of those specific experiences make it a lot easier and also a lot more fun. That's not to say we're not open to hiring men. Perhaps one day we will. I just haven't yet found the brave man that would be willing to be man number one.
Yes, he wants to be one of 19. He would be the 19th person, so he'd be one of 19.
Yeah, I said to someone the other day, I think we'd have to hire two men at the same time, because I think it would be a lot for that one poor guy.
Oh, yeah, one would need support from the other one.
Yeah.
Well, So how does having an all-woman staff make a difference for your clients and your customers?
I think women are just, they're very collaborative. Not to say that men aren't, but I think in my experience, both with other people I've worked with and also on the client side, women generally like to work in teams. I think that we trust each other. I think we're also truly team players. And I think this is sometimes to our own disadvantage, is that we really focus on what's the team end goal rather than necessarily what makes us individually look the best. And I think when you're in a client service business, that is obviously amazing, right? Because every client wants an agency partner that is really looking at their best interest, and sometimes, not their own. I'd say I think what's challenging about having an all-women staff is I think sometimes that, there have been clients who I think, and it's been in the minority, but there have been clients when it comes to, talking money or budget or, things that are quote-unquote traditionally more male stylistic. It's definitely like a little bit of a different approach that we have to take as opposed to being able to be like dude to dude with the guys. But I would say generally it's been a wonderful experience, and I feel like it's been an asset and not a disadvantage in any way.
Sure, I could see where there are certain clients or certain brands that would come to you, certain businesses, let me say it that way, that would come to you because an all-woman staff would be better suited to helping them create their brand.
Yes, and that has happened too. Because obviously in my office we have women spanning the age of 22 to 68. So you're getting kind of like 4 different generations in that span. So you're definitely seeing it from a variety of different ages and also life stage perspectives.
Now you know what, Megan, I know a lot of my listeners are small business owners, and for the most part they aren't huge companies like a McDonald's or a Google. So would you explain how having a business is different from having a brand?
Sure. So a brand doesn't necessarily have to make money. So, for instance, if you're someone who just really loves being on social media and you have created this persona with your content, with what you're posting and what channels you're on and what your visuals look like, you could very well be a brand on social media, but not a business. A business, at the end of the day, by definition, its goal is solely to make money. The goal of a brand necessarily isn't to make money, although obviously for all the things that we talked about before, a lot of them, that is their goal. But if you're looking to, if you're looking to make sure that you're portrayed a certain way or you come across a certain way, that's much more in the brand space than in the business space.
So I'm thinking like a Kim Kardashian who got her business started by having that brand of being very sexy.
Yes. So she created her brand probably in a way that I would never recommend, which is via a sex tape.
That's right.
But, different strokes, different folks, and it certainly worked out well for her. But, yeah, and she was able to parlay that branding experience into a business. But that certainly, A, doesn't always happen, and B, it certainly doesn't have to be the objective of having a brand. Yeah, and since most people know how she got started, it isn't always like the best. Yeah, exactly. Although I've actually had the pleasure of working with her in the past through different partnerships, and she is lovely and super professional. So
nice to know. So a business and a brand are different, but how is branding different from marketing or PR?
Sure. So once you have a brand and you decide that you want to actually kind of get it out there and get it in front of people, marketing is how you do that. So marketing is the way that you allow people to find out about your brand. And then the different ways you do that, that's when you get down another level to, advertising, to PR, to social media. Those are all kind of different channels or different like levers you can pull under the overall umbrella of marketing.
So the business is the centerpiece, and then the spokes would be the brand and the marketing and the PR would all be.
So the business would almost be like the overarching like umbrella, and then the brand would be the center of that, and then the marketing plan would be kind of the spokes that support the brand. How does branding make a difference to a customer? I I think it makes you buy in, I think, a lot more. I mean, one of the things I've noticed from my own personal experience is since, doing things like talking to you and speaking and being interviewed in various places, we've actually had more resumes come in proactively than we have in the past. And, obviously, when we've interviewed them, the feedback has been that because of, things I've said in interviews or because of the charity my company does, that has made them believe that Evolve is a place that they want to work, a place that they believe in. And that's not about Evolve as a business. That's about Evolve as a brand. So that's one part of it. Two, I would say that, again, going back to social, because I think that's the easiest way for a lot of your listeners to kind of test out the branding concept, is, we always think about what we put out on social, visually, the text, everything, and how that ladders up to our brand. We've gotten a lot of comments, too, from clients, prospective clients, and even thought leaders that, because of, it sounds silly, but because of, something we posted on Instagram or our overall Instagram feed that they, Evolve is a company that they want to work with or they're interested in finding out more. So some of these things that feel a little bit, softer or like less tangible do add up to, I think very actionable opportunities coming your way.
Very interesting, Megan. We need to take a break. So when we come back, I'd like to be talking about how we can change or recreate our own brands.
Sounds good.
And everybody hang loose with us, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour, and we're here. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with branding expert Megan Driscoll. And Megan, I know a lot of my listeners are leaving jobs that they've had for a long time, and they're starting a next chapter. And not all of them with businesses. Some of them are leaving and they're starting, maybe they've always wanted to have a small business. But some of them are just trying to create a happy next chapter for themselves. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us what, for those of us who are doing it, what we need to be thinking about for our personal brand?
Sure. So, I think the most important thing to start with is what's important to you. So, where does your natural interest lie, especially if you're not doing it to start a business or to sell anything, right? You're just really doing it to kind of launch the next chapter. So what do you stand for? What's important to you? What's interesting to you? And then I would take some time and after you've thought about all those things, think about what a unique point of view is for those. And how you can have a unique voice. A great example of this is Sophia Amoroso. She's the founder of Nasty Gal and Girl Boss. And so she had a business that was Nasty Gal, which was a clothing company, but she actually was so outspoken on, women in the workplace and women kind of breaking that glass ceiling that she created this online persona and ended up writing a book called Girl Boss. And so she sort of accidentally created a brand just because of things she felt passionate about and things that she believed in. So something like that. And her tone of voice is, it's very young. It's still very, feminism is obviously threaded through it, but it's a little bit snarky, a little bit more accessible, fun sayings, a little bit more modern. And so she was able to stand out with that. And that's kind of one of the most popular handles out there in social media and trending hashtags. So I would say for your listeners, think on a smaller scale, when you think about what the things that you're interested in and what you want to talk about on a regular basis. Think about how you can also set yourself apart from the people that are already talking about some of those things and already doing things online, because there's always a new way to say something or a new way to look at something that other people will find interesting.
Now, you made me think of something, Megan, and I have a guest coming on in a couple of weeks, and she wrote a book called Careergasm, and it was about finding the love that the kind of career, changing careers into something that you absolutely love. And when you said the snarky, her website is, it was, I don't know, it's very nicely done. But she uses a lot of words and phrases that I probably wouldn't use. Mm-hmm. So as I looked at it, I thought, she must be going after a very young crowd. Does that come into part of your brand?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question and a great point. I think I think for your listeners, think about, so who do they want to be talking to? And that was something for, like, when I thought about Evolve, right, and how we communicate and all of our messaging and our decks and what our website looks like. And we couldn't probably use some of the language that the other woman that you're referencing, uses on her website, because we're going for a little bit more of a corporate business audience. So we want to be cool and hip, but we can't be off-putting. And so I think for your listeners to think about, like, one, they have to feel comfortable with what's being put out there, right? And if anyone in their life sees it or in their former life sees it, that they have to feel like they can stand behind it. So that's number one. And number two, you want to talk in the same language that the folks that you're trying to reach are speaking in. So depending on what age that is, or depending on where the people live, that might take you in several different directions.
So if I, as a midlife woman, wanted to talk to a younger crowd, I would think that it wouldn't suit me to speak in like the way a 25-year-old person would speak. But would I speak in more parentally? Is that like I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, so I think, so for that example, I think, I know we've only just talked a few times, but I can't imagine you, Annmarie, speaking very, very snarkily. That doesn't seem genuine to your personal
it really
style. Yeah. But I think what you would do is you would you would speak the way you're talking now, but I think your focus and the examples you would use, and you wanted to reach a younger audience, you would probably use examples that are more relatable to them in their day-to-day life. So, for instance, like if you wanted to have a guest and reach a younger audience, maybe you look at someone in their like 20s who's really breaking out, like online, like one of these influencers like Deepika, or some of these ladies that have really become well known online, and their followings tend to be younger. So you're still being true to your brand, but you're taking your brand and putting it next to someone else's brand who reaches kind of that younger audience.
So it's sort of a collaboration or a partnership of sorts.
Yeah, and I think partnership is a huge part of building a brand, right? I don't think anyone gets anywhere alone. So I think, having partners and having allies that help you reach different audiences, help you think about different things, that only can help your brand.
So Megan, if I'm a person who is like, and I know some of my listeners they're in a job and they're thinking that they're in the next maybe year, 2 years, 3 years, that they might be leaving that job and they want to do something else. How long does it take to build a brand?
So, it depends. I think brand building does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. I've had my company now it'll be 3 years in September, and I would say that this year we've made the most progress on brand building, but we still have a long way to go, especially if you're looking to be somewhere like, for me, I would like to be as well known as like the bigger PR agencies, right? That's not going to happen in 3 years. That's going to probably take 7 to 10. But if you're looking to build your brand really just among like your friends, your family, your extended friends and family, like that that could happen like very quickly. For the women who are kind of planning ahead and who are still kind of working at their jobs but looking kind of to the next chapter, I would say, devote some time like every week to start planning, to think about what you want to stand for, to learn about, maybe some of the social channels that you may not be as familiar with, start experimenting a little bit, start laying the groundwork. So when you do transition to your next chapter, you already have some things set up and some thinking already done, so you can just kind of hit the ground running.
But, Megan, I like what you just said when you mentioned family, and I thought you could start testing out your brand with your family and your friends to see how, to get their reactions, right?
Yep, absolutely. I did that with, even with my business logo. I sent it around to my closest girlfriends and asked them for their opinion, like back before we even opened, just to get, 6 people's opinions who are in completely different industries, separate from mine, just to get a sense. And I think that really, and that's a great point, and that will give you such a valuable information and such valuable feedback.
And it's easier now because we have things like Facebook. And
yes, much easier.
Yeah. And what are a couple of must-haves, or I don't know if must-haves is a good way of saying surefire ways to create your brand?
So I think, one, depending on, I think, kind of the age and the type of brand, but I would say, Facebook and Instagram are definitely like really easy ways to create your brand and get it out there. Visuals, and both of those mediums are very visual, are very important. Anything that looks like your brand that you can keep kind of putting up there, that has the same color scheme, has the same font. If every Thursday you're going to be known for posting like a really funny joke, like you do that like every Thursday and that's your thing. Even small things like that can help. The one piece of advice I would say too is not to spread yourself too thin. Pick like one thing and do it really, really well. So, if you're looking at going out in social channels, or if you're looking at starting a blog, I would start with just the blog or just the social channels, and do that really, really well before you kind of add in another channel to go out to, because all of those things are a lot of work, and I tend to be a big fan of quality over quantity. And
you mentioned the blog, and one of the services that Evolve offers is an influencer blogger strategy. So that would be like Pioneer Woman or Hungry Girl. And those two women, neither one of them started out to create companies or even a brand. So how did they do that?
So they, I think they both had, especially in Hungry Girl's case, she has a very interesting perspective on diet and nutrition. And at the time when she came out, blogging was still pretty new. Mm-hmm. So I think she had a combination of really fantastic timing and a perspective that no one else had at the time. And then you're right, she kind of got into business by accident. Another good example is actually Emily Weiss from Into the Glass. Her whole business, which is truly a business, it has private equity money. I think they've gone through like 3 rounds of funding at this point. Her business started as her blog. And, she always talks about it. She didn't go into it with an intent to start a business. Her intent was to make beauty really accessible. And as she started writing her blog and as she started getting more educated about the beauty industry, she started coming up with product ideas. And then, so her blog and creating her brand kind of led her in a direction to eventually create a business. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, too, for your listeners to just be open to that. Because like some of these women, if you have something that's really interesting, really different perspective, you can end up creating a business. And there's nothing better than having a brand turn into a business and have a business then that you love doing and love going to every day and is really kind of a part of you.
And it's a Pioneer Woman was one of those, and she started her blog certainly not as a business, but she was out in the middle of on a ranch someplace. Yeah. And it was her way of connecting with, I think it was her mother, that's why she started to write, because it was too expensive to call. So she would create a blog. She created this blog, and then other people started paying attention.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's and I think one of the things that I've learned on my journey, which I think is relevant to your listeners too, is really to just be open. I mean, if you told me 2.5 years ago that this would be what my business would look like, I would have told you that you were crazy. But here it is. So I would say to your listeners, definitely be open, be excited, and just be curious about what life throws at you, because starting out to do something that you like and you're just looking as a hobby can turn into a business that creates jobs and touches a lot of people's lives in a meaningful way.
Good information, Megan. We need to take another break. So there's more I want to talk with you about branding and a particular blog post that you had that I wanted to share with my listeners too. So let's all take a break and come right back. And you're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with branding expert Megan Driscoll. Now, Megan, here's a question I want to ask you. So let me just step back for a second. So if one of my listeners wanted to start a blog, so she would think about who she wanted to attract and the medium,
and also what topics she wanted to focus on, right? So, is her blog about her experiences as a mom? Is her blog about, diet and nutrition? Is her blog about fitness? Is her blog about a combination of those things?
Yeah, or her blog could be just about the struggles that she's having trying to decide whether she's leaving. It could be a first-person narrative. Yeah, and there's no wrong answer. I think it's just great to have some kind of a focus, because those are the blogs that do the best, in my experience. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, Megan, but if a listener wanted to attract the millennials, she probably isn't going to be on Facebook, right? Probably not. So, Facebook is a wonderful tool if you're a corporation because of the analytics and the way you can target certain people. But if you're an individual, I think you're better off probably looking, and you want to attract millennials, I think you're better off having a blog and then using Instagram to promote it. Mm-hmm. But for midlife women, and I have a private page on Facebook because that's pretty much where midlife women go. Yes, yeah, and look, Facebook is like I said, it's awesome. It just really depends on who you're trying to reach. So all of those things it's almost like, do you have to do a business plan first when you create your brand, or how do you think that through? So, I think some of that depends on what kind of person you are. So for me, I do need to write things down. It helps my thought process. It helps kind of my mind organize things. Mm-hmm. So generally, for anything that I've kind of successfully launched, I've always had some kind of a plan with obviously flexibility as things come up or things change or you learn as you go along. But having some idea of where you want to go will help you figure out how to get there. It's good. That's good information, Megan. I like that. I've been in business a long time, so I know you could be shooting into the air or you can be focused. Yeah, well, and someone actually because I pushed back a lot in doing a business plan, but then someone gave me the analogy of, well, how would you book a plane ticket if you have no idea where you're traveling to? And I was like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I did that one time with Thanksgiving dinner, and I was talking in the article that I wrote. It's like you have to think, how do you want your guests to feel at the end of Thanksgiving dinner? Exactly. Yep. And I think that's a great way for your listeners with their blog. After someone is reading their blog, how do they want them to feel? Mm-hmm. I think that's really good. Thank you. I think that's good information. So now, Megan, I was reading one of your blog posts about tips from female entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And two of them were especially interesting on this particular blog post. And I posted the link to that on the radio wrap-up so that my listeners can take a look at it. But I'd like you to talk about these two things. Use your womanhood to your advantage. And you know that sometimes is frowned on, but you say embrace it, use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I think women are amazing, right? We can give birth and go to work and do all these things, and so I think that as there is something special about being a woman, and I think just like men use golf to bond, I think there is absolutely no reason why women can't use their strategic thinking, their maternal skills in some instances, and really read the room to determine which tool from their toolbox they can utilize to kind of get what they want. Mm-hmm. I think women are missing a key asset if they're not doing that.
Yeah, sometimes, and back in the 70s and 80s when feminism was just starting to come out, it's like you wore the man suit and mm-hmm. all that stuff, and I don't think we have to do that now.
Nope, we're not men. So yeah. I think we're women. Yeah. So I think that we should embrace that and then use that to our advantage.
Yeah, I like that, Megan. Now, another one you have, it's the stand your ground. Now, what does that mean for a woman? Because too many times we shift. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, and I referenced this a little bit earlier, I think women are so concerned about, the other person or the team goal that they're trying to accomplish that sometimes they forget that, that their opinion is actually the correct one. And I think women, because we're such collaborators, we allow people to fill us with doubt much more easily than men. So I think that it's important to, keep kind of focused and keep yourself centered. So if you're an expert in something and you're right, that you should absolutely stand your ground. You don't need to be, abrasive or whatever about it or off-putting, but I think there's a way to stand your ground, to be direct, and to make sure that your voice is heard.
And why do you think we don't do that?
I'm not sure. My guess would be, and I'm sure that researchers probably have a better answer to this, but my guess would be, I was raised by a very strong woman who's actually my office manager. I work with my mom. But we were still, I think, taught societally as women to kind of not always rock the boat. And I think sometimes, standing your ground is rocking the boat, right? It's conflict. And conflict isn't always bad, but I think a lot of people are taught that all conflict is bad, and that's not true.
Yeah, I agree with you. And sometimes it's really important if you aren't standing up for yourself, who's going to do that for you?
Exactly. You have to always be your own advocate.
And what was the other phrase? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yep, I love that. I love that saying.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I have a couple friends who are one who's an engineer and another who's a contractor, and those are typically male-dominated fields at this point, even though we're trying to work with the STEM to get more women into these mm-hmm. careers. But they are, the engineer particularly, like she says, somebody comes to her house to do some work on her house, and then they're telling her stuff that she knows isn't correct.
Yeah.
And last year I had my heating and air conditioning replaced, and the owner of the company, it didn't turn out really well, and I called to complain, and the owner of the company said to me, "Listen, just have your husband call me; he'll understand." And I said, "What?" I was furious, and I stayed on the phone with him. He said it 4 times, Megan, in one phone call.
Oh, my God.
Have your husband call me. So now I don't take to that very easily, but what tips can you give women for how to stand their ground personally and professionally?
Yeah, so one of the things that that I do, if I know I'm going to have a difficult conversation, is I try to prep for it. I used to be an athlete, so, just like any big game, when you would try to get a good night's sleep, not drink, just make sure that you're really going in, do something fun the night before so you feel energetically refreshed. I try to go into kind of those conversations that I know are going to be a little bit tough or where I'm going to get pushback, kind of prepping as though I'm an athlete, prepping for a game, and that helps because it sets me up for success. I go in with a clear head. I'm relaxed. I'd say for the conversations that catch you off guard, I'm never afraid to ask for more time. So, I had a recent experience a couple months ago where basically I had a client kind of attack me a little bit in public, and I was able to just very calmly, and very concisely explain the misinformation that the gentleman had, and then excuse myself, and then was able to follow up a couple of days later after his head had cooled. I had kind of was not in public anymore, and we could kind of have a more rational, calm conversation, and that ended well too. So I think it's really just not forgetting to lose the fact that ultimately you do have control over the conversation and the situation, and also when you have to have those conversations. So don't be afraid to feel that power and kind of adjust the situation to when it's putting you in the best situation to really stand up for yourself.
And I like that role playing. I've done role playing with people, and not with my spouse because he's always too easy. But with somebody who's really going to give me some pushback.
Yeah, that's really helpful too. Yeah, because I think everyone wants to kind of get out of those conversations. It's fight or flight, right? And I think a lot of people just want to go away, run. Mm-hmm. But that's never really the solution.
This is great, Megan. Thanks for coming today. If my listeners want to connect with you, how do they do it?
So my company's website is www.EvolveMKD.com, and you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and LinkedIn at EvolveMKD.
That's great. And all of that information for my listeners is on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. Megan, have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too. Have a couple cocktails for me.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, Victory Chicks and you guys, that's info you can use. And even if you aren't in business, some of you will remember one of Oprah's favorite phrases, you teach people how to treat you. And I think that's part of branding. So if people know that they can do this or that, they will. And if they know they can't, they won't. I'm headed to the Phillies game tonight, and it's all about the fireworks for me. But on Monday night, you might be interested. The Nauer Performing Arts Center is showing on the big screen the 1940s Alfred Hitchcock film Rebecca with the beautiful Joan Fontaine and the very handsome Laurence Olivier. So it was a 1940 Academy Award winner, and it's a fabulous movie. I think if I can get out, I'm going to get there myself. If you are playing the lottery, you might want to think about today's date, 7717. It's a good number. And I have a great quote for you today. Sort of brings together branding and fireworks, since fireworks have been on my mind all day. And it's from Toshiro Hitsugaya, the fictional character from the anime series Bleach, who said, "We are all like fireworks. We climb, we shine, and always go our separate ways and become further apart. But even if that time comes, let's not disappear like a firework, but continue to shine forever." Now, I know he's fictional, and I know it's a guy, but someone wrote it for him, and I like it for us, that we can not disappear, but continue to shine. So have the best weekend. Thanks so much for coming today. I hope you'll join me next Friday for the Friday Happy Hour. Jen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.